Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Bryce. Recently I did a video talking about how Anakin was justified in his actions at the end of the Clone Wars. The Jedi Order, through their own actions, made it very difficult for Anakin to do anything else but lead them. They never accommodate his unique needs and skills, and so he was left with no choice but to join the Sith. Anakin is the ultimate victim in this tragic storyline, and the painful transformation he undergoes to become Darth Vader is one of the most powerful moments in the entire franchise, and ultimately what saves the prequel trilogy. But those final moments would have never meant a thing if we didn't really see what Anakin was throwing away by joining Palpatine. Throughout the course of the prequels and the Clone Wars, we witness Anakin, who is an extremely kind and loyal individual, make close connections and friendships. We see how alive Anakin is and how much love and emotion encompasses his heart. And so today we're going to be looking at every last goodbye that Anakin has with the people he loved and respected. Anakin Skywalker, Jedi General, Sith Slayer, pod racing champion, and the chosen one destined to bring balance to the galaxy. He might seem like the most confident, courageous, and powerful Jedi Knight in the history of Star Wars, but he always had one significant weakness. A not-so-great childhood that involved a lot of death, destruction, war, and of course slavery. Unlike most children who joined the Jedi Order, Anakin was more than old enough to remember being separated from his mom, and that created a sort of separation anxiety within him. Anakin feared being alone and losing those he loved more than anything in the world, and it's something his enemies would exploit in him. But before he even feared losing his one true love, Padme, Anakin encountered some very trying circumstances with his Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. Unlike most masters and apprentices, there was very little hierarchy between Ahsoka and Anakin. They more or less treated each other like equals, respecting the other's abilities as both a Jedi and a commander. Something that Anakin had learned from ObiWan Kenobi, who he saw as almost a brother rather than just some mentor figure. Ahsoka would get framed for bombing the Jedi Temple and eventually be kicked out of the Jedi Order. But when her name was finally cleared thanks to Anakin's own investigation, Ahsoka decides not to return to the Jedi. The whole incident shook her understanding of her role inside the Order. While other Jedi would have controlled their emotions and let their Padawan go, Anakin tries his best to convince her to stay and is deeply saddened by her departure. And so months later, when Ahsoka Tano returns to the GIR with information about the whereabouts of the fugitive Maul, Anakin is extremely excited to see Ahsoka and almost forgets about the mission she's suggesting they go on. Ahsoka remains aloof in her meeting with Anakin. She really just wants to talk about the mission. She hasn't decided to rejoin the Jedi Order. She's just here as a concerned citizen. But before everyone can go on the mission to hunt down Maul, Coruscant is attacked by Grievous, and Anakin and ObiWan Kenobi are assigned to go back and protect the capital, leaving Ahsoka alone to go get Maul. But before she goes, Anakin surprises her with an attachment of the 501st Legion led by Captain Rex. The entire clone unit has painted their helmets to mimic her face as a sign of respect. Now, obviously, Ahsoka Tano is an alien, so we're not really sure how weird the situation is for her, but I do know if my soldiers, if I had any soldiers, drew my face on their face, I'd be freaked out. Anakin then gifts Ahsoka a pair of blue lightsabers. She'll need them to defeat Maul. And just like that, the two depart. The next time they meet, they'll cross blades as sworn enemies. The entire reason Obi-Wan trains Anakin Skywalker is because Qui-Gon Jinn makes him promise to do so. Obi-Wan has always been an active critic of his former master's unorthodox behavior, but at the same time, he really does respect his master. But in many ways, Obi-Wan, who was a Padawan when he defeated Maul, was ill-equipped to handle such a difficult Padawan like Anakin. Not only was he extremely powerful for his age, the young former slave, and difficulties controlling his emotions. Yet Obi-Wan took Anakin in as if he were his younger brother, and the chemistry and love between these two is extremely powerful, and eventually leads to one of the most tragic and powerful moments in all of the prequels, the duel on Mustafar. Obi-Wan originally wanted to go after Palpatine and hoped Yoda would be the one to face Anakin. Obi-Wan was a strict adherent to all the rules within the Jedi Order, but even he had limits. He crossed the line when he declared his love for Satine Kryze, and he once again crossed the line by telling Yoda that he can't kill his good friend and brother. Nonetheless, ObiWan Kenobi is a man who understands his duty, and so he puts aside his personal feelings for Anakin and journeys off to Mustafar. He confronts the fallen Anakin, who clearly now is antagonistic towards the Jedi, and perhaps even suspects that Obi-Wan has been boning Padme the entire time, which is definitely possible. The two fight an epic duel, and Anakin especially fights with a level of viciousness against Obi-Wan that is sort of hard to watch. Ultimately, though, Obi-Wan gains the high ground, and Anakin foolishly tries to take it from him. Obi-Wan would leave Anakin smoldering at the edge of a lava lake half on fire. The two won't meet again until their duel on the Death Star many years later. While Obi-Wan Kenobi views the duel on Mustafar as the death of Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader will become obsessed with hunting down his former master. It's questionable whether Yoda knew about everything that was going to happen during Order 66 and the fall of the Jedi. We've done quite a lot of videos that assume that he did know about it. Yoda had been contacted by Qui-Gon Jinn's Force Ghost, and he went on a spiritual quest in which he saw visions of the future. And so during Order 66, Yoda wasn't at the Jedi Temple or even in Coruscant, where he could have helped Mace Windu arrest Palpatine. No, instead he was stationed all the way on Kashyyyk amongst loyal Wookiees who were fighting against a separatist invasion alongside their clone allies. The last time Anakin sees the Grand Master is right before he leaves for the Battle of Kashyyyk. Anakin had another nightmare vision about a close loved one dying, similar to the vision he had of his mother when she was being held captive by the Tusken Raiders. But this time, the vision he had was of Padme. Anakin visits Yoda the next morning and kind of talks about these premonitions he's had in the Force. Yoda reminds Anakin that visions in the Force were oftentimes misleading, and fear of loss is one of the ways that visions can trick a Jedi into doing terrible things. Yoda probably knows that Anakin massacred those Tusken Raiders. I mean, he definitely felt it in the Force when it happened. And so when Anakin responds to Yoda's warning by saying, "I'll do anything to protect the ones that I love," Yoda advises the young Padawan to let go. The next time Anakin would reunite with Yoda would be in the Cosmic Force. Anakin loved Padme more than anything in the world. It was his connection with her that ultimately led to his downfall. When Anakin finally returns to Coruscant after the Adarim sieges, he finds out that Padme is now pregnant. It's perhaps one of the happiest moments in his life. But then things immediately go downhill. After Anakin has that vision of Padme dying, Anakin is tasked by the Jedi Order to investigate Chancellor Palpatine and figure out his agenda for the Republic after the war is over. This would lead to the revelation that Palpatine was in fact Darth Sidious, which would lead to the Jedi coup that triggers Order 66. Padme had originally planned on moving to the Naboo Lake House in preparation for the birth. It's exactly what I would do if I were in her situation, but Anakin's erratic behavior at the time made her stay. She witnesses the destruction and battle at the Jedi Temple from afar, and as a close friend to the Jedi, she was worried for the safety of her friends and, of course, her husband, Anakin. Anakin does return, albeit with the stench of death on his cloak and some youngling blood on his boots. He tries to reassure his pregnant wife that everything is alright. Anakin lets Padme know about the Jedi coup, but Padme sort of doesn't buy his story because she knows all about the Jedi principles and what they stand for, but she's not really in the position to kind of go against Anakin. As we've mentioned in previous videos, falling to the dark side is like becoming a meth addict, and Padme just wants to avoid domestic abuse while she's pregnant. Anakin leaves and goes on one more mission for Palpatine to go wipe out the leaders of the Separatist Alliance. The reality of the situation still hasn't hit Padme at this point. There's still hope in her eyes that her family and future can be salvaged. This is all but shattered by the appearance of our other trusted Jedi friend and potential lover, ObiWan Kenobi. Kenobi tells Padme everything, including the stuff about
killing younglings.
Padme at this point doesn't know who to believe anymore and rushes off to Mustafar to find Anakin and confront him about these new accusations ObiWan Kenobi has made. Unbeknownst to her, ObiWan Kenobi has also stowed away on her ship. When Padme confronts Anakin, she finally realizes how far gone her husband was. He had fallen completely to the dark side. And of course, ObiWan Kenobi chooses this moment to exit Padme's shuttle in full view of Anakin, who immediately suspects that Obi-Wan and Padme were now together. The last time Anakin would touch Padme would be through the Force, wrapped tightly around her neck. Mace Windu was a hard Jedi. He wasn't without kindness, he definitely wasn't a dark side Force user, but he had very low tolerance for nonsense. Mace Windu respected Anakin Skywalker on the battlefield, but he never really embraced him as the chosen one, prophetic savior for the Jedi Order. Mace was quite the stubborn and practical individual, which means he didn't initially support Anakin joining the Order in the first place. He was far too old and had issues controlling his emotions. Mace also is highly suspicious of Anakin's close ties to the Supreme Chancellor. This is quite an unusual relationship for a Jedi to have. When Palpatine appoints Anakin as his own personal representative on the Jedi Council, Mace Windu's suspicion only increases. But Anakin is loyal to the Jedi until the very end, when he finds out about Palpatine's true identity. He immediately reports it to Mace Windu, which helps Anakin regain some of his trust. But not enough for Mace to ask the young Jedi to join him to go arrest Palpatine. Perhaps things would have happened differently had Anakin been in the Chancellor's chamber from the very beginning. He would have seen how easily Darth Sidious could dispatch Jedi Masters and how terribly powerful he actually was. Maybe then, he wouldn't have stopped Mace Windu from killing Palpatine. A lot of people might view Anakin as sort of this silly and undisciplined character who can't control his emotions, but I actually view him as one of the most courageous Jedi in the entire Order. I mean, if you really think about it, most Jedi, because they refuse to develop attachments and emotional bonds and connections, are missing out on all that life has to offer, and they're also not allowing themselves to be vulnerable and develop meaningful connections. And this is a huge part of what it means to be a Jedi if you really think about it. They are here to serve the people, they're here to protect the people and protect the light side of the Force. But how can they do that if they cannot even develop very basic emotions and feelings for another person? So yes, Anakin Skywalker was the solution to many of the problems within the Jedi Order. He had lost touch and forgotten what was truly important in their teachings. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And remember, just like Anakin, it's important to reach out to all the people that you might have let go in the past, or all the people you haven't talked to in some time because of this pandemic. Check up on your friends, your family members, and make sure everyone's all right so that we're together in this very trying times. Well guys, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.